Yeah, here we are. Teal shirt. Yes, episode 5, actually. Thank you guys for tuning in. Carlos Alvarez will always be my main number 45, wide receiver for the Florida Gators. When he played for the Gators, late 60s, early 1970s. When I was a little boy, 6, 7 years old, he was playing around the early 1970s when Florida Gator coach Doug Dickey became the coach in, what was it, 1970? Man, that's going back a long way. Hopefully Florida will have a good season this year with DJ Lagway. Hopefully he's healthy. Mad Max kind of reminds me, hey, Lagway was in a boot, and now I think he's out of the boot, and I think he's going to be okay. High school football underway, but we're mainly here to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ed White did beat Jackson 32-19, a final on Friday night, August the 15th. We got a lot of scores up on the website at bigjreport.com, a lot of high school football scores. As I understand it, I'm looking at some highlights now too. Man, I wasn't going to talk about him, but he got a couple of catches early in the game. Brenton Strange made a couple of catches. He's really the new top receiving tight end for the Jaguars now that Evan Ingram is actually with Denver now. The Jags, did not re-sign him. I guess they released him, wanted out of that contract, and wanted just basically to go a different direction. Evan Ingram will be a big part of the Denver Broncos offense, I'm sure. I'm watching some of the plays. There's one thing I like, and I saw Parker Washington on the highlights make another catch, but I like Parker Washington. We said a few weeks ago on this podcast, and I'll cut the music for a moment, JC. One thing I said several weeks ago on this podcast, and again, this is episode show number 45 of the Teal Shirt Report podcast here in 2025. We've been on YouTube probably close to a year now. We've been doing the audio version of the podcast, which is still up. We've been doing that for about 6 years now. But I saw one thing I did see that I liked. And I mentioned it to John Gaylor in our chat, is that I like the vertical plays. There was a little screen pass to Tank Bigsby. The thing went, Tank Bigsby caught it, maybe 6, 7 yards up the field. He turned it into 18 yards. I believe that was on the first drive. And then the Jags ended up fumbling around, I'm going to say the 20-yard line, might have been at the 19, or it was around the 20-yard line of the Saints in New Orleans. And that was very unfortunate because it was kind of like, the offensive lineman's backing up to protect Trevor. And then somebody stepped on somebody's foot. I don't know if Ezra Cleveland stepped on Trevor's foot or vice versa, but it was probably Ezra Cleveland. His big foot stepped on Trevor Lawrence and created a fumble, actually. I believe that was a fumble on that play. And I watched the majority of the game. The second half, I had a hard time watching it 100% of the time. A lot of backups in there. But what do I take away from a 17-17 tie? In all seriousness. Man, that coffee's good this morning. Thank you, coffee boy. Ed White, 32. Andrew Jackson, 19. Got a lot of scores. We cover high school football for Jacksonville, Duval, North Florida, South Georgia, Western Georgia, and that pocket of Southeast Alabama. It seemed like I scoured the scoreboard on Friday night. I don't think Eufaula, Alabama played unless they played Saturday night. Whenever we get a hold of their games, we're going to put them up on the website too. For North Florida, South Georgia, Duval, Jacksonville, Southeast Alabama, a little bit of Central Florida. That's kind of our area, including the neighbors areas at bigjreport.com. I like the Tank Bigsby play. It was a vertical play. The pass went, I don't know, I'm going to say it went 5 to 7 yards, 6 to 8 yards. And then Tank got another 10 yards out of it, made about an 18-yard gain out of that play. Parker Washington, I told everybody this could be a breakout year for him, but my gosh, he's the fourth wide receiver on this team. The free agent from Washington, the Commanders, De'Ami Brown did not play in this particular game for whatever reason. Some players were arrested. Some players might have had some aggravating injuries. I don't think there was anything really serious. Travis Hunter didn't play. He had an upper body injury, I believe, but I don't think it's serious. I think if this had been a regular season game, I believe Travis Hunter would have played. But it gave Parker Washington another opportunity to show that he can make difficult catches. And he's still a work in progress, but this is his third year. I like him. He's going to play a lot of football. He's the fourth guy. I believe De'Ami Brown's the third guy, and those two will probably fight for the third position. But De'Ami Brown's making a lot of money. He got a 1 year, I think, $10 million deal. And then there were a couple of touchdowns in this game. The second drive, Trevor, they scored. We take a look at, I'm not going to take a look at stats right now. We'll tell you that DeJuan Smoot had, I believe, a half a sack in this game. He's playing good, inspired football. DeJuan Smoot, who played for Buffalo last year, but this is like his third or fourth contract with the Jaguars. He spent the 1 year in Buffalo last year. By the way, AAA baseball at home, the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp 6, the Norfolk Tides 5, a final score on Sunday, August 17th of 2025. The Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp playoff bound. They're already 25 games over 500. The Jumbo Shrimp now 72-47. This information comes to us from Big J Report and BigJReport.com. Weather report. There's a storm out there way south in the Atlantic, but it's not going to really bother us. There's one that's kind of skirted to the east. There is one out there in the Dominican Republic, San Juan, Puerto Rico area. And that one, I'm hearing, could go toward the Gulf. That could be an issue. It's out there in the Turks and Caicos Islands now, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. 130 mile per hour winds already, strong storm. It's a category 4. Is that right? Okay, so one of the storms is moving well east. And then there's another storm after that could affect the Gulf later on, is what I understand. So we'll keep an eye on that. Currently, some clouds and 75 degrees in Jacksonville, Florida at 5:45 a.m. on Monday morning, August the 18th of 2025. Right here in Jacksonville in North Florida, partly cloudy to mostly cloudy and hot, but not quite as hot. The temperature is going to still feel a little hotter than the actual temperature. Rain chance 50%, high temperatures near 90 today, low around 75, winds northeast at about 5 to 16 miles per hour in North Florida and South Georgia. Preseason football, talking about the Jags, and that's what we talk about on the Teal Shirt Report podcast. NFL preseason, Jacksonville Jaguars 17, the New Orleans Saints 17, a final. Ended up a tie game. Jags had a 17-3 lead in this one. The backups couldn't hold the lead on defense. There was a turnover by one of the backup quarterbacks. The Jags were actually moving, trying to get into field goal range to win the game in the final waning seconds of the game. Then there was a deflection on a pass, and the pass was intercepted, I believe. That was one of the backups throwing the pass. But let me say this. Trevor looked good. He was 8 out of 10. Jacksonville Jaguars had a 17-3 lead at halftime over the Saints. Trevor Lawrence started at quarterback, and again, he was 8 out of 10, including Parker Washington with a TD catch from Trevor in the first quarter. And then when Nick Mullins came in late in the first quarter and second quarter, there he is again, Brayshawn Tootin with a 3-yard TD run with backup Jacks quarterback Nick Mullins in there in the second quarter. And then the Jags kicked a field goal after that. They had a 17-3 lead at halftime. Saints battled back. It ended up 17-17. Could a tie be an omen for good things to come? Yeah, let's hope so. Trevor played good. 80% completed 80% of his passes, threw a touchdown pass. There was the fumble when left guard Ezra Cleveland, I guess, stepped on Trevor Lawrence's foot. They kind of, that happens occasionally. It's just, one of the things that Ezra Cleveland's backing up to pass protect and stepped on Trevor's foot and the ball came squirting out. Trevor still got to protect the football, and these things happen. I told Gaylor in the chat, I said, man, the Jags, I was thinking about what they really need on this team, and the cuts are going to be interesting. Who gets released, who goes to the practice squad, how the final 53 will be handled. Late this month, it's coming up, cut down is going to be in less than 2 weeks from now. There's only one preseason game left. Jags are 0-1-1 in the preseason now. So, heading into this direction, I talked to Gaylor on the chat, and I said, my goodness, the Jags need a defensive tackle. Because I've been harping on, hey, they're going to move Trayvon Walker inside. That may happen occasionally, but not as much now. The Jaguars have just made a trade. And this is a guy that may have been on the bubble to making the team or not. Luke Fortner has been traded to the New Orleans Saints. I guess the Saints needed a center. The Jacksonville Jaguars have traded center Luke Fortner to the New Orleans Saints in exchange for defensive tackle Kalen Sanders. This trade was made following the preseason game where the two teams ended up tying 17-17. Fortner, a third-round pick in the 2022 NFL Draft for the Jaguars. He did start 34 games for the Jaguars before being moved as a backup. So, excuse me, there's a little bit more information on this. Excuse me, the Jaguars have also signed veteran Robert Hainsey to start in the middle of the offensive line to play center. He's going to be the guy. The Jaguars also drafted Jonah Monheim, a 7th-round pick out of USC. Tony Baselli liked the pick because it was from his alma mater of Southern Cal. So it looks like Jonah Monheim may become the backup. Fortner's been moved to the Saints, and the Jags pick up a defensive tackle. Now, could it be that new general manager James Blackstone is starting to think like me a little bit? And I told Gaylor, I said, we need a defensive tackle. All of a sudden, about an hour later, I get this message from Gaylor. The Jags have traded Luke Fortner in exchange for Saints defensive tackle Kalen Saunders. And I think I pronounced his name right this time. Kalen Saunders becomes a Jacksonville Jaguar to play defensive tackle. So all this stuff is kind of interesting. The trade aims to strengthen the Jaguars' defensive line depth, and address the need of experienced players on the roster. So that the info came from Sports Illustrated, also came from John Gaylor. John Gaylor sent me another message. Hey, this trade has gone down. And I'm going to tell you, it happened like an hour or two, maybe an hour. I'd messaged John. I think, man, this team needs a defensive tackle. They're maybe lacking a defensive tackle. And they make this trade like an hour later. I hear about it. John Gaylor messaged me the info of the trade before anybody else did. So the Jags have picked up a defensive tackle, Kalen Saunders from the Saints. They've traded Luke Fortner. The Jaguars, to get Kalen Saunders, not only did they trade Fortner, but they also traded a 3rd-round pick. Did they trade a 3rd-round pick? No, it's just saying Fortner was a 3rd-round pick back in 2022 in the NFL Draft. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. That this is a trade that might help both teams if the Saints need a center. And he's a smart guy out of Kentucky, Luke Fortner. And Liam Cohen and the Jaguars probably sold the Saints on this deal. Luke Fortner, it didn't look like he was going to be a starter. Man, Luke was going to have to play well to probably make the team. However, against the Steelers, when Tootin was pushing in to score a touchdown, Fortner was pushing too, and I liked his effort. So the Saints may be getting a guy that may emerge, and he could be a late bloomer also, but he's a very smart guy, played center and guard in Kentucky, at Kentucky with the Wildcats. I think he was there part of the time that now Jaguars head coach Liam Cohen was at Kentucky. Then Liam Cohen spent some time with the Rams and then the Buccaneers. And I will say this about the offense. I did like, honestly, I liked the vertical plays. Instead of this, you know, in the past, we've seen offensive coordinators, they love this little pass where they throw it down the line of scrimmage and where our guy gets tackled a good bit of the time. High school football scores: Ed White, 32, Andrew Jackson, 19, a final on Friday night, August the 15th of 2025. Now, this is what I'm told, JC. The Florida scores from this past weekend were considered preseason games or jamboree games, preseason games, I believe. The Georgia scores we've got on the website are considered regular season games. I haven't seen a score on Eufaula yet, JC, but when we get their score, we'll post it up on the website because we're going to be covering Duval, Jacksonville, North Florida, South Georgia, Western Georgia, and that pocket of Southeast Alabama, a little bit of Central Florida possibly as well on high school football. We'll cover it at bigjreport.com. Anything else from the game I want to mention? Again, I like the Tank Bigsby screen pass that he took for about 18 yards. Parker Washington caught a touchdown pass from Trevor, and I believe that was on drive 2. Trevor was out of the game, after the Jags got up to what? And well, after they scored the first touchdown, when Tootin scored, Nick Mullins was in the game in the second quarter. So the Jags got Parker Washington scoring a touchdown in the first quarter. Tootin scored in the second quarter, and then the Jags kicked a field goal with Cam Little after that. There's a little bit of shuffling going on across the offensive line. Again, the Jags have traded Fortner. Maybe that kind of clears out the clutter a little bit and says, hey, we got to play. Hainsey's the guy playing center for the Jaguars. They've been trying some different guys at tackle. We'll see how it shakes down. Injuries come into play, but the O-line is key. The D-line is key. And now the Jags have picked up a defensive tackle from the Saints in a trade. And I like the trade on paper, at least because you needed a defensive tackle. You kind of had a glut at center. I still like Fortner. I think the Saints are getting a guy that can grow and get better. He's got to get better to hang around the league. The Jags did think enough of him. Balky, a couple of years ago, drafted him. I think this is Fortner's third year, I believe. So Balky did draft him about 3 years ago in the third round. And Balky made some good picks, and Balky might have made some bad picks. Now, I'll say this about our running game. Real quickly about the running game. All of these top 3 running backs have been drafted by the Jaguars. ETN, basically your top guy. Tank Bigsby, number 2. And Brayshaw Tootin's going to be on the team. And he's going to get some carries. He's a hard guy to tackle. We saw that in the Steelers game. He scored now a second touchdown in the preseason. In the second quarter, as Nick Mullins handed him the ball. The Jags got a very consistent field goal kicker who kicked the 70-yarder against the Steelers, although I think they put a second back up on the clock. But you can't take it away from him. A 70-yard field goal. If nothing else, that's a preseason field goal record, right? We got the high school football scores up on the website at bigjreport.com. The Shrimp keep winning. They're 25. JC, can you believe it? The minor league team in Jacksonville, AAA team, 25 games over 500. They're going to be in the AAA baseball playoffs. The Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp from the International League now 72-47. Their latest win, the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp 6, the Norfolk Tides 5 on Sunday, August the 17th. So, real quickly, as far as the game goes, I like what I saw out of Brenton Strange. He made a couple of catches early with Trevor Lawrence. Parker Washington looks good. He scored a touchdown. Dami Brown did not play. Travis Hunter did not play. And I have to take a look at the stats. I'm trying to think if Brian Thomas Jr. had caught a pass in this game. But I like to what, and we all know we know he's going to be the number one guy, wide receiver, Brian Thomas Jr. But now you've got some other guys, Parker Washington, Dami Brown, and Travis Hunter is kind of a wild card. He didn't play, had a little upper body issue, didn't play. And he probably won't play in the third game. And I got a feeling Trevor Lawrence will not play in the third preseason game either. But Trevor, except for the fumble, when Ezra Cleveland stepped on his foot when the Jags had the ball down around the Saints, maybe 20-yard line on the first drive when they didn't score. Except for that, the offense looked good. I love the play calling. I know it was vanilla. Had to have been they're not, pulling out all the bags of tricks yet. But I like the vertical game where the plays are going upfield and you're getting positive yardage and you're not making those little dump passes down the line of scrimmage. Those are okay now and then to fool the defense. But if you don't fool the defense, those plays are not worth a darn. Bottom line. So, and Dewan Smoot got in there again. I believe he got credited for a half a sack. I have not looked at the stats yet, but we will. Dewan Smoot got a sack in the first game. I believe he'll be credited with a half a sack in game 2 of the preseason. This guy plays hard, and if he's 100% healthy, JC, he's a good player. He was with Buffalo last year. I don't think he was quite back to 100% last year, but he may be this year. Dewan Smoot. Keep an eye on him. I think the effort by a linebacker who the Jags drafted in the middle rounds a couple of years ago. Well, he's moving into his third year. He was hurt all his first year. Ventrell Miller plays hard at linebacker. Where's Dick Butkus is number 51, which Kevin Hardy wore at Illinois, and I think Hardy was 51 with the Jaguars too. That's an important number, 51. Boysaid Alacoon, great linebacker too. And then I told Gaylor we need another defensive tackle, and the Jags have just traded with the Saints and picked up a defensive tackle. But John Gaylor, we may have enough at linebacker. And the guys that got to look themselves in the mirror, they could really, if they come around, give the effort, play hard, this defense could become good. The offense, I think, is going to be good if they can limit the mistakes. Trevor has a big year. He's going to have targets. The running backs have all been drafted by the Jaguars. There's a fourth running back. He may end up on the practice squad. He was also drafted by Gladstone in the very late rounds in this particular draft. And on the next podcast, we'll go back into the draft. That's LeQuint, right? I believe his name's LeQuint, but he's basically the fourth guy, but they like him. How many running backs can you carry? And is there possibly another trade on the table out there? The Jaguars did trade Fortner, cleared a little bit of the clutter. Fortner might have been a guy that it could have been a numbers game, and he might not have been able to be here anyway. But he did. I think he really showed some good effort and played hard in the Steelers game, the first Jaguars game, and that may have earned him what the Saints saw on film and in New Orleans may have earned him a spot with the Saints. So these things happen as time goes on. So as far as covering the Jaguars, I did want to mention Dewan Smoot, that half a sack. I think he got a sack and a half on the preseason already. And he's on like his third or fourth contract with the Jaguars. He also signed a contract with the Bills in 2024. played 1 year with the Buffalo Bills. We'll check some. Now he's back in Jacksonville. I think that was a good move. Now, DeJuan Smoot should make this football team. He's playing hard, got at least a sack and a half after 2 preseason games. Concerts, UB40 in the Fix in St. Augustine on August the 23rd. That's coming up pretty quick. We'll check some other concerts. And by the way, we want to let you know we're brought to you by Saucer Realty and Capital for your real estate needs in North Florida, whether it's home, residential, business, or commercial real estate. Saucer Realty and Capital. You'll find a link for Saucer Realty and Capital on our homepage. We're also brought to you by the Mad Max Mix on Weebly.com. Mad Max. Man, Mad Max always has a great show on Wednesday nights at the madmaxmix.weebly.com. I think I'm supposed to be on Max's show and be interviewed this coming Wednesday. And I think we're on with Max at least once or twice a month. Max will play Steely Dan for me. Man, he plays a lot of great stuff. Leonard Skinner. Max is he knows he's an aficionado on Leonard Skinner, Allman Brothers. He'll play those. Steely Dan. For me, he's played John Lennon before. Check out the madmaxmix.weebly.com. I've even heard him play Pink Floyd. Check out Mad Max on Wednesday nights at the madmaxmix.weebly.com. You probably noticed I haven't taken a look at the stats, but I've given you my impressions of, and again, there were a lot of players in the second half that will not even be on this football team. So I'm not concerned with a 17-17 tie, especially when the Jags went 3-0 in the preseason last year. They're 0-1-1 this year. The tie might be a good omen. A tie in preseason, that doesn't happen very often. We'll take a look at concerts real quickly. JC, the Brad Paisley Show, was back on August the 2nd at the St. Augustine Amphitheater. So Mr. Paisley's come and gone. Here's a good one, UB40 and the Fix at the St. Augustine Amphitheater on Saturday night, August 23rd of 2025 at 7:30 p.m. Tickets have been selling fast for this one, and now the show is almost here. This coming Saturday night, August the 23rd of 2025 at 7:30 p.m. UB40 is performing at the St. Augustine Amphitheater on August the 23rd of 2025, again with special guest, The Fix. You might do a double take on this one, but Peter Frampton, that's right, Peter Frampton on Wednesday evening, October the 29th of 2025 at 7 o'clock p.m. at the St. Augustine Amphitheater in St. Augustine, Florida. And Mad Max, Skinner, Johnny Van Zandt and the crew that's out there touring, that's to carry on the Leonard Skinner name, they will actually be playing at Daly's Place right next to the stadium. Everbank Stadium. Daly's Place is located right next to the stadium. And we'll get the dates up. We'll get the dates up on the website on bigjreport.com on the Neighbors 2 section soon. But Skinner, as I understand it, will be playing Daly's Place in November of 2025. Also, another great event, tickets for Mickey Dolenz. He's now 80 years old, last surviving member of the Monkees. Tickets for Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees, Songs and Stories at the Florida Theater on December the 5th of 2025 are on sale now as well. So that's a look at some North Florida entertainment. Jumbo Shrimp for 25 games over 500 now. High school football is underway. Check out the high school football scores on our website at bigjreport.com. I think Ed White's got a chance to have a strong team this year. I really hope they do. We'll keep up to date with North Florida high school football, Jacksonville, Duval, North Florida, South Georgia, Western Georgia, that pocket of Southeast Alabama, Southeast Alabama. And we'll dip down into Central Florida a little bit with the high school football scores as well. What stood out as we're 29 minutes in, Tank Bigsby's catch from Trevor Lawrence, and he made a lot more out of it, about an 18-yard gain. Trevor was 8 out of 10. That stood out for me. The Tank Bigsby catch and run for about 18 yards. Brayshaw Tootin's a tough guy to tackle. He had a 3-yard touchdown run in the second quarter. And again, Parker Washington's making good catches. He caught a touchdown pass from Trevor Lawrence in this game in the first quarter. Trevor was 8 out of 10 in his short stint. He was only in there, but both drives were long, 2 long drives in the first quarter. So Trevor, man, he won't play in the third game. He's ready to start the regular season, I believe. Keep him healthy. The O-line is shuffling up the players. They're taking a look at the combinations now. We'll see what happens. Now that the trade has been made of Fortner to the Saints, it appears that Hainsey will be the starting center. And the kid that was drafted in the late rounds out of USC, Monheim, will probably be the backup if he makes the team. It's going to be interesting to see what the cuts are here late this month, late August, like on the last day of August of 2025, when they cut down to the 53. And then a few hours after that, they start filling up the practice squad. We're 30 minutes in, JC. That is going to do it. Juwan Smoot, a good game on defense again. And, man, it's going to be interesting. Go Jags. Duval. This has been show number 45 of the Teal Shirt Report podcast, saluting Carlos Alvarez, big-time wide receiver. He is in the College Football Hall of Fame. I've messaged with Carlos. There was a great documentary on him. I believe it was called The Cuban Comet. And he wore number 45 at Florida. And that was back in the early 1970s and late 1960s. He was in Florida, late 1960s, early 1970s. Carlos Alvarez, number 45. That's going to do it for the Teal Shirt Report podcast. I think we got a lot of the info out there that we wanted to talk about. Again, the Jaguars involved in a tie game. Jacksonville Jaguars 17, New Orleans Saints 17. The preseason game ends up in a tie, but a lot of good things happen, particularly in the first half of this football game out in New Orleans. There's only one more preseason game left, and then it's going to be for real. Want to thank JC, our executive producer. And, hey, we want to make sure you tune in. A lot of people are tuning in for Lake Eufaula Hits and JC's live from the pub show on Thursday nights at LakeEufaulaHits.com. Great internet radio where it's absolutely all good. Check out JC on Thursday nights. Check out the MadMaxMix.weebly.com on Wednesday nights. And there's links for both of those shows, Mad Max's Mix on Wednesday night and JC's Live from the Pub Show on Thursday nights. You go to our website in the Neighbors 2 section. There's also a link for Mad Max's show in the Outside the Box section on our website at bigjreport.com. That's going to do it. Show number 45 of the Teal Shirt Report podcast. JC, we got it all done in about 33 minutes. I want to thank our executive producer, JC. Also, Alex Nunnery, Nunnery has a great video on high school football. He was at a game. Alex Nunnery was at a pretty good football game. He was at the Bowls game. Was it the Bowls game? Yeah, he was at the Bowls game. Bowls won their first game. As I told you, the Florida games this past weekend were preseason. The Georgia games were for real. I'm sure the Alabama games were for real as well. Florida usually stays about a week behind Georgia and Alabama, I believe, as far as high school football in starting their regular seasons. I think it's kind of always been like that. But check out Alex Nunnery on this channel. He was at the Bowls football game, and he had an interview. He got an interview on his video with the Bowls head football coach. So check out Alex Nunnery. And a big win for Bowls. Alex interviewed the head coach. So check it out. I want to thank our executive producer, JC, another producer, Alex Nunnery, and John Gaylor. Thank you for all the info. John Gaylor is a contributor and correspondent on the Teal Shirt Report podcast, bigjreport.com. We got a Facebook group too, Big J Report. That's Big J Report Facebook group. You guys have a great day. This has been show number 45 of the Teal Shirt Report podcast. Go Ed White. It might be one of the strongest teams we've had in a good while at Ed White. High school football, it's underway now. Jaguars got one more preseason game left. College football around the corner. We'll be talking SEC football real soon right here on these podcasts, on the Teal Shirt Report podcast. I'm your host, Scott. Hey, I'm out. Have a great day. Thank you for watching and listening.